I'm analog. I do computer stuff. Of course we do. But the warmth and sound of analog, that's another reason I use Vanguard mics. The warmth and sound of analog. You can't beat it. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's a different aspect. I'll have somebody in here and we will play. I said, okay, here's the computer. We're listening to the computer, recording playback. I'll just hit one button, switch it to the console, just through the console mix. Eyes get this big. They're like, oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. Yeah, it's different.
All right, so welcome back to Vanguard Conversations for August. I am here with Chuck Ebert, engineer and producer extraordinaire at the Cabin Studios. Remind me which part of Texas you're in, Chuck.
A little bit of we're in Fort Worth, Texas. Just on the outside, it would be Azle, just a little bitty town. We sit right on the edge of Fort Worth, so technically it's Fort Worth. So there you go.
I mean, with the log cabin aesthetic, it's got a little bit of that Texas hill country vibe to it, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, we kind of sit out in the Texas countryside. It's nestled in the Texas countryside's 2,400 square foot of recording bliss.
I can see your Genelex back there on top of your board. What board is that, Chuck?
That is an Atari Elite Plus that's been modified, and if you're familiar with Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, or the second, one of those two movies from Star Wars. That was one of the boards that was used to mix that. So
that's pretty cool.
Two of them tied side by side at the time, and 80 channels there, and pretty amazing. And I got that out of from Skywalker Sound, and ended up making its way to here. So it's our pinnacle, and of course it's been modified and stuff. It's pretty much like an API board.
What console hasn't been modified these days?
Oh my gosh! At this point in time, you better have modified it. You won't be working. It's analog. It's different, Derek. In this day and age, man, it's everything's done in the box. Very computer box, very computer driven. That's just, emulation. And I'm analog. I do computer stuff. Of course we do. But the warmth and sound of analog, that's another reason I use Vanguard mics. The warmth and sound of analog. You can't beat it. I mean, it's just it's a different aspect. I'll have somebody in here and we will play. I said, okay, here's the computer. We're listening to the computer, recording playback. I'll just hit one button, switch it to the console, just through the console mix. Eyes get this big. They're like, oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. Yeah, it's different.
It reminds me of the tube transistor debate. Like, objectively, digital does a lot of things better, right? Like, it's easier to work with. There's non-destructive editing, all that jazz. Right. But then subjectively, you listen to it and you go, why does my ear like the older style better, right? And I think that's why a lot of mics back in the day are from when they had very limited technology are still so revered. And it's not just because the Beatles or whoever used them on their records. It's because those engineers had to use their ears because the objective materials and parts they were working with were just never going to be objectively superior the way that we can make mics today, but subjectively, they are audio bliss, and I feel like analog consoles are the same way when they're maintained properly, of course, because that's the other part of it. It's a bit of a trick.
Controlled, ideal temperature controlled, in here, which we keep it. It stays that 74, 75 year round pretty much in here, so it's not too cold, not too hot, and it keeps the piano, the guitars, the everything.
And how hot is it outside your door right now in Texas?
100 degrees. It got stupid over to like 106, 107 like day before or yesterday. I don't know when it was. The last few days have been absolute miserable heat here. So I'm lucky and thank God, both air conditioners are working and they're cutting off and on, So I got a
well insulated.
Yes. The logs and everything. You get that kind of thickness going on, and insulation. It keeps the noise and the sound and keeps it comfortable.
Yeah. So let's start from the very beginning, Chuck. What drew you to music, and how did you fall ass backwards into music, like so many people I've talked to?
Gosh, yeah, that's what I would say. Ass backwards is exactly right. Yeah, I should have chose many other professions, but the call of music was just in the because money wise, you're not you need to be doing something else. You better have just a
Mhm.
love and passion for it. But built less through the years, we've done very well and had some great hits and so on. But I picked up guitar when I was a kid and started playing music like most people do that are interested in music. There's got to be a connection somewhere. For me, it was the guitar and strumming my mom's acoustic a little bit. And then I said, I'm going to play it till my fingers bled, literally. And I just picked it up and everything just hit me right. I could just
Mhm.
self-taught. Had one friend of mine that I watched how he played, and I learned a couple things from him. And then from there on, man, it's been into the business we go. So yeah, that was kind of the drive that got me started. Derek was just a guitar, as you can
Yeah.
see by all the guitars.
You said a guitar. I
Uh,
assume the one that you picked up first is not in that pile over there.
no, it's not. No, it's not part of
Okay.
the Les Pauls and the Strats and the
Yeah.
Charvels and all the rocking stuff that I have. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what was your first, oh, let's call it gig, like consistent gig where you started making money and said, oh, maybe I should do this for a living? And you said it with great hubris and foolishness, as we all do at one point.
I think I was about 60 years old. um, wow. First time, I guess, you start playing some music when you're a kid in the band. I got some different bands, went out and
Hmm.
played. But I never really thought about it that was going to be a career money maker. I was doing it for the love of playing
Yeah.
music. And then I said, no, I want to do this for a living. That was after I got high school. That was like, man, I'm going to go for this.
Hmm.
Move out to LA, try to play and do that. And I did. I got to become a little rock star doing those things. But it's been a colorful life.
Yeah.
but it's been a serious struggle when you're young, as is everybody when they're young playing music and so on. And the industry's changed so much today. It's not like it was
Oh,
growing up.
most definitely, most definitely.
Oh, yeah.
What led you from? Because you talked about being a rock star and playing guitar and playing in bands and moving out to LA. When did you start to make the transition to, when you introduce yourself now on your card, it says producer engineer, even though you do a lot of other stuff, which we'll talk about. But when did you start to make the transition to the more technical side and less being in front of the mic?
All right, so that's a great question. So that happened early on. So I started tracking and recording and producing, actually recording and getting into music. 14 years old, started getting a 2-track, started a cassette tape, one cassette to another cassette, and recording. Then I found a dual JVC cassette player where you could plug a microphone in it and record over it, multi-track on a 2-track, And man, I was making demos, learning that, and I said, this is pretty cool. And then I had an 8-track from a bass player friend of mine. His dad says, "We'll let you borrow this 8-track." Oh, that was it, dude. That opened the doors. I think I was
Mhm.
17 years old when that
Okay.
happened, and we started, reel to reel, learning how to any mic. It didn't matter what it was, just something track. You're learning how to do all that. True story, real quick. During that time, the reel to reels, I got this reel to reel tape. This is pretty cool. From the Louisiana hayride, because Louisiana's my homestead back in
Mhm.
Shreveport, Bossier. It's kind of home. So these tapes were in this box. So I put the tapes on the reel to reel, and I'm listening, and we're going to record, over this tape. I hear, I'm like,
Oh no.
Elvis Presley from the Louisiana hayride on this tape, and it's only coming through 2 tracks because it's they're, I don't know how
Mhm.
they're 2 or 4 track back then, whatever they're doing, but it's on this reel to reel. And I'm hearing this, and I said, man, this is not. This is history. Don't record over this, Chuck. Don't hit the red button. So I took it off and gave it back to the guy that gave us it. Mr. Pollard gave us this tape machine. And I said, I think that's Elvis Presley. And we looked on the reel and the tape like that, and it had some pin scratch or something on there that mentioned EP and some other stuff. Well, I didn't know EP meant Elvis Presley. That was an EP, an extended play.
Yeah, you thought it wasn't extended play.
Yeah, extended play tape,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was pretty cool. So I got into doing that, and that hooked me. So I literally have been. And when I was 18, I was actually producing and recording and engineering. So I got into it very early on. So I was doing that from those early days all the way through career now. And of course, when the rock star days die off, and you're not playing guitar everywhere, and you're like, okay, Nirvana's in the scene, and 80s rock is out of the scene because my hair is here, it's rock star time. So, that's it for that.
I want pictures of that we can splice
man.
into this video interview.
Yeah. We'll send you a few.
I'd love it, man. I will definitely chuck those in the interview because I think people need to see Chuck Ebert with his hair down yonder.
We got some serious hair. Yeah, we have some serious hair, man.
They called it hair metal for a reason, I guess.
Oh, it was, man, yes. And it was fun times. Those were for playing guitar and doing the things I got to do. It was very amazing time just to rock like that.
So you've always been a technical... You've always been a technical guy, but then you kind of shifted to it more full time.
Oh yeah.
And since is that when you opened the cabin, or did you do stuff in LA first, or?
Yeah, it was both everywhere. And then in the 90s, early 90s, that's when music started making that shift, and Pearl Jam 90s and so on. So early 90s to mid 90s, I started working back in the Dallas Fort Worth and Nashville area. So I really started working in Nashville about 91, 92. I was back and forth to Nashville a lot, starting to do things.
And that's where you got the gospel Grammy, is that correct?
Yeah, one of those. Well, we actually worked with, believe it or not, that group was actually, some of those were based out of Memphis and folks, and from various places as a collective group. But most of that recording was all done in Dallas Fort Worth, believe it or not. They all came here, and we worked in the studios in Dallas Fort Worth. So I worked at a studio called Summit Sound Productions, and the Rolling Stones have been there. Linda Ronstadt, Don Henley, Eagles. I mean, a lot of the folks I worked with, naturally mentioned here, we've been through there and worked there and did all that. So that's where we cut a whole majority of a lot of these albums, and that was in the mid-late 90s, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
Been a while now.
So one thing I noticed about you the first time I met you, and I let me preface this, I'm 36. You've got a decade or two on me.
20 years.
We just gloss over that number. It's not
20 years.
One thing I noticed about you immediately when I met you is like, this guy is so full of energy, and it blows my mind how you just have this go mentality. Where did that come from? How do you maintain it? Do you bottle it and sell it? And I'm just assuming it's not cocaine.
No. I've been wired naturally like that my whole life, and go and do. I will say I'm finally slowing down a little bit, in my late 50s here. But yeah, man, it's just I'm enthusiastic, energy about most things, and I want to see great things happen to great people. I'm always positive as much as I can be about projects and music, and music does keep you young. It can grow you old. I mean, I bite your nails sometimes, but that's the technical side mostly. But the joy of music has probably kept me going and doing over the years. Working with great people, that's always awesome. That means the most. You included in that, I mean, I can't say enough about Vanguard and you guys and the mics, and of course I got all your. I mean, I use so many of your mics here. We tracked with one of your mics last night, cutting background vocals. I tracked fantastic too. Actually, lead vocal and background vocals been cut on that tube, and the V13 is bad. And we had I got two of those actually in the other room too, flying over the drums for my overheads, and because it warmed them up. I mean, made those cymbals just sparkle and sound so good. So yeah, we're using those, and it was like, well, why are you using a mic like that for vocal? You ought to hear it on drums, man. It's amazing. I couldn't believe how good it sounded. So let's throw that overhead.
I was shocked at how quickly it got picked up as a drum overhead mic, and it makes a lot of sense in retrospect because of the way we designed it for vocals. But the fact that it doesn't pick up like the harshness of the cymbals, but still gets that sheen and shine and the sparkle without being, too razzle dazzle, I guess, on the top end.
Yeah, that harsh real, not there smooth.
Yeah,
and cymbals can be harsh, all kinds of different ones, different flavors. But it really made a difference here at the cabin, big time.
I appreciate that, man. So you talked about your optimism, and that's another thing I noticed about you is you're relentlessly optimistic. Tell me why. Tell everybody listening why. the music industry is headed in a positive direction, because we get a lot of news, and a lot, music has just taken blow after blow, starting with Napster and then Spotify and those meager payouts. Get 200,000 streams, don't spend that nickel on drugs, right?
Yeah.
And then now there's generative AI being trained on artists' music without permission, and it's getting better and better. So I think a lot of us could really use some optimism about the music industry, and about the fact that, yeah, we work 3 times as hard for half the money in music. We already accepted that, but it feels like that half the money just keeps getting sliced thinner and thinner. So give us a reason for optimism, Chuck, because if anybody can, it's probably you.
Well, I think the reality of what you said is very, very true, Derek. I think everything you just said is extremely true that's going on today in the business. The optimism.
Okay, that's a rough start.
But I'm gonna affirm you on that, because that's true. But the optimistic side of that is, for every great flood, there's it goes away. And the music industry gets flooded, and it recedes. Change is always hard to accept in any, and we have great change going on. But the positive of great music, and I do it like this. This is what I'm noticing. All the cream is going to rise to the top, because it does. The best comes up to the top of the glass, as it's being filtered and done. And I'm watching a lot of that happen. There's more and more. It's a flooded market. Yeah, there's a lot of everything going on, but there's some great stuff starting to come through all this, and through the Grammys and the advocacy and some stuff I've noticed there. They're fighting for the rights for artists and stuff to finally receive royalties and get paid for our works and do that. But there is a lot of positive out there. Most of that is stay true to your work and what you're doing. And I've been doing that. I stay true to, it's like you're going to build a mic. You're going to build a great mic. We're going to need those mics. And, you still have to record. And AI and stuff's great. People go out there and record, do it. And it's cool for what it is. But you can't take the human part out, the element out of there. That human is just. Oh, I guess I'm getting sparkles from being the human.
Oh, it's
positive.
It's an iPhone. It's an iPhone update. I found this out recently. If I give you the thumbs up, it will eventually pop a thumbs up next to it. Yep,
there you go. There you go. Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to do the middle finger one. I feel like that would be very useful.
Yeah, that's going to come up pretty soon for me.
Well, I like that positivity of the cream rising to the top. Although George Carlin did say something about for every bit of cream rises to the top, remember that turds float too.
That's right. They do. They do.
But that's a good bit of positivity. Where are you seeing your income streams change as a producer and engineer in the last 10 years? Now that's something I whenever I've talked to anybody on this, even guys that are very hardcore, just a mixing engineer or whatever, they've seen their income streams change over the last 10 years. And everybody wears a ton of different hats now, at least a couple of them, in order to make a living. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what's your, without getting into too much detail, if you could send over your taxes later, we'll throw that up on the screen. What are your kind of main music income streams? And then how have those changed over the last 10, 15 years since streaming became a thing?
Well, in a good way, being a songwriter, which I'm a songwriter and I've got some songs out there that have done very well, had some number ones and so on. I'm not just a producer. So, and the wearing the many hats, those are the strengths, and you're dead on with this. Production is one thing. Points on albums has basically gone away. That really doesn't.
Oh, really?
Not much anymore at all. Not a whole lot. Independent records, and this is what I've more. This is just my world. More and more independents are what I'm working with now. More and more individual artists, individual folks. They're working with the majors and all that stuff. We can still do some of that, but it's the independent aspect of it. Licensing has when you've written a song or something for something that's being picked up in the licensing world, that's generating revenue. Ads and stuff like that, they still do. But I don't have great news in that world, because like everybody else, my income has drastically changed. There are a lot of zeros missing from what used to be in royalties. I mean, a $10,000 check is a $100 check now. I mean, that's
the songwriting royalties in particular. I don't remember the specific details of it, but when Pharrell came out with "Happy" and it was like the #1 song in the world for it was months. It was months and months. And he was talking about his royalty check from Pandora, because the way that they got around the songwriting royalties, um, as a songwriter, he made so little money on something that got billions and billions of plays.
Yeah.
And he made like middle class American income on it for the
Yeah.
number one song in the world.
Yeah.
Which means that for the middle class musicians, they're making, like you said, $100
Yeah.
on millions of streams.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the songwriting royalties have really taken a hit. And I haven't followed the industry news on that front as much as I used to. I don't know if the songwriting royalties have changed or the laws have been updated in regards to streaming.
Some.
Okay.
Some,
Hopefully in a positive way and not in a
still, yeah. I
Spotify
mean,
lobbied the crap
yeah.
out of Congress way.
Oh, yeah, they've been fighting. I mean, that's why advocacy works, and fight. You got a voice, and it's all in that world. But yeah, the streaming income is not what it was, and for people know this. This is just round numbers, but 1 million streams on like Spotify is like $1,000, and after you take that $1,000 and divvy it up through everything, then there comes your $100 to the artist. And it's not a lot out there. So diverse in music. I have been diverse in many other avenues besides music, because music brings so much to the table. And if I want to continue with my lifestyle, enjoy life, and do things here and there and other stuff, I've diversified, over time, not just in music, because anybody out there. The truth be known, it is a tough world. You better be doing it because you love it. You better have a love and a passion for it, and accept the fact that you're not going to make a killing at it. You're not going to make a ton of money. The way artists make money today, really, there's only really two platforms the artists truly make money on, and that's merchandise sales and live shows. When they're doing the live shows, they generate revenue. When they're selling the merch, they're generating revenue. The rest of it is pretty much all investment, just so they can go do a live show, have their music out there. Because pretty much music out there today, and what I've experienced, is like advertising. I mean, it's more like on the advertising side of things. It's out there on playlists, Spotify's being played and all that, but it's not generating a ton of money. It's more like generating ads. It's like it's seeing that it's out there. It's an ad, and marketing and a marketing tool. So for anybody out there today in the music industry, especially artists and starting out on that, it's a tough road. And don't have the stars in your eyes and think it's just going to be overnight, because it's not. It takes a long time to get there. Overnight success isn't really there. They say that a lot, and I've heard that so much, but it's really not. Even somebody you say, "Oh wow, they've just wow, they're on the scene, they've blown up." But 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4, 8, 16. Here we go, 32 and on. And it takes that time for all those numbers to propagate for you to be something just boom, overnight success. It takes a little time. It does happen. I mean, it does happen, absolutely. But it's few and far between the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And the market's saturated. It's saturated.
That doesn't help either, does it? I mean, the nice thing about Pro Tools and Logic and all the just digital recording, let's say, is that it brought it to the masses, right? Like it used to be, to set up a decent recording studio, you're spending $500,000 and, in like 80s money,
Okay, exactly.
And now it's like, oh, you can, get a MacBook that has GarageBand on it, get a USB mic, and technically be recording. And there's lots of arguments about what the quality of that recording is going to look like. But the fact that you can do that now, and you can set up you can have a pretty decent setup by spending thousands and not tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and have a pretty decent recording setup. And that democratization of recording, I think, is a good thing, as is the lack, the gatekeepers of, the gatekeepers and tastemakers that were the record labels. But at the same time, that means that because everybody can make music, you're fighting so hard to get heard through the noise. Yeah. Well, how do you tell artists how to deal with that you're working with? What do you tell them?
I'm always straight up with them about that, because it's you got to understand that you created a song, you put your heart and effort into the song, and then you're going to put it out on a platform, which anybody can release a song on any platform pretty much today. Get it out there and distribute it, and getting distribution is one thing, royalties from another, or getting people to listen to it. Marketing is where most people fail, in the music industry, and that's individually as an artist and putting your song out there. You can record, like I said, you can get a microphone, record at home, record it, and you can do something. Create this, create that.
Mm-hmm.
But putting the song out, you can put the song out there. I mean, it's great to get some, but how do you get everybody to listen to it? How does everybody know to go find it? Well, your 15, 20 friends and your family are going to listen to it, but what about the rest of it?
Mm-hmm.
That is the marketing aspect of it that costs a lot of money to do and
Yeah.
get people to listen to it. And
that's a lot of money and or a lot of energy,
Both. Absolutely both. Yeah, it takes both. And it normally takes an agent. And you can't do it on your own. That's you say that about artists. You have to have a team. You have to have a team. You can't do it on your own. Everybody, I can put the record and do it. Yeah, there's a lot you can do. But if you don't have a team and everything behind it, it's very hard to get anything out there and really have it rock and roll. So.
Well, and it's amazing. We talked earlier about like wearing a lot of hats, but what an artist has to do at the beginning, they have to be their own promoter. They have to book their own shows. So a lot of the times they have to record and produce their own music in addition to writing and performing it. They have to be their own bookkeepers. They have to be their own, graphic designers. Just the amount of hats you have to wear as an artist, even until you get to like a mid-level to where you can maybe start farming some of that out. Is just unbelievable,
Yeah.
It used to be, and I know so many talented people that can't balance a checkbook if you put a gun to their head. So it used to be that that if you found those people, you could put them with a label, and they could have a supporting team, and they could make great music. And that's how you get the Nick Drakes of the world and stuff like that. But then now it seems like you have to be talented at everything and have the relentless optimism and insane amount of energy that Chuck Ebert has.
Yeah.
So
and cast like crazy. I think that's a big thing. Yeah.
So I talk with this about a lot of, or I talk about this with a lot of musicians, and that's like what you are outside of music, right? Like. It's really easy to have it become your identity. And the problem is when we have things like that are outside our control, like the music industry, become our identity, then things outside our control can really affect our emotional state and stuff. So what are the things that you do consciously to kind of uncouple yourself from music and be a little more grounded in reflection and the present?
Man, that's a good question. I take time off, and I have some quiet time. I enjoy. This is a sanctuary to me. I mean, in a lot of ways, and I'm not sanctuary church, but as in a cool place to chill out. And when no one's in here and I'm not working in here, so the cabin is really a unique, amazing place. But no, I take downtime, man. I get away. I have to let my ears rest. I have to. That's a necessity. Hobbies and stuff like that, we do that. I'm a disc golf player, so I very much have golf. So I go out and play a disc golf every chance I get, except not in 105-degree temperature. And I play tennis. Do a little bit of that too. Try to stay exercise, healthy, eat right. I cook because I love to chef up great food. That's something I
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Oh yeah, man, chefing is fun. Getting there and cook things up for people. So. Yeah, I have my downtime doing that. That kind of keeps me replenished, and I do get away from the music side and the aspect of it. You got to let that go sometimes. I mean, yeah, I've been on magazine covers, and I've had this, that, and all those things happen, and it's great. I'm thankful for that. But sometimes you got to put all that aside and just have some of your just you one-on-one. Me and my dogs, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Funny little ones. She's awesome, but. Yeah, just you got to have some downtime, man. It's and put it away, and otherwise you can bog down in this. I mean,
and burn out real easy.
Yeah. I could work 24/7 in here, man, and and I do. If you have something happens, you got to stop. So, and I find myself in here at night sometimes like, oh my gosh, it's I didn't realize it's 1, 2 in the morning, and I'm still working on stuff. Stop.
Yep.
Rest. Take attention. Yep.
So who's an artist that you've worked with recently that you feel like needs more recognition? That you're like, this person's tremendously talented and we should hear more of them, but we don't.
Wow. 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 Uh, huh. I have to think about that, Derek, because there's a
I know
lot.
there's a number of them. None of, I should say this in advance to any of them watching. Don't feel
Yeah.
bad if Chuck doesn't pick you.
You know that there's a band, Hold Fast, that is absolutely amazing.
Hold
That
fast.
Hold
Okay.
Fast, and that is somebody in a band I would highly suggest anybody listen to, check out. Um, how do I describe them? Imagine Dragons meets U2 meets the Cars, but today's music in modern, and vocalist is fantastic. The three-piece band Brothers got two brothers, and and the lead singer is the cousin, and they're family and sweet guys, good people. If you've ever seen them play, you ever get to see them play, Hold Fast with the period at the end of it. Wow. I mean, some of their music is absolutely wow. I was blown away to be able to work with them and do some stuff with them. They're fantastic. So yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
look them up right
really
after this. So
they
yeah.
really stand out to me. That's somebody that I'm enjoying a lot as of late. So yeah, I'm wishing them all the best in the world.
So let's talk gear, because this is a Vanguard Audio Labs podcast, or interview or whatever, and I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about gear a little bit.
Love
So,
gear.
um, what would be your kind of desert island piece of gear from your studio? And you don't have to say a Vanguard just because I'm sitting here.
Oh no, I got it. I get it. Um, it's not going to be a microphone actually.
Okay.
It's going to be that beautiful piece of console sitting right there.
Okay.
That right there, that sound, the tone, and everything going through it, that's what creates the cabin sound, and a lot of stuff that comes out of here is because I mix through the board. So anything, I mean, we do all kinds of stuff where they'll take it, and we'll record some stuff, do it, and give it back to them, and go mix it somewhere else. But when we mix in here, it's something we're working on, the console and that sound. And the other thing that gives something that I'm highly respective of is some of the Manly gear that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just the sound that Manly. I actually have a very that stays plugged into the 2-track of that console, and it just.
I'll tell Ivana; she'll be excited.
These cool beans, yeah.
Yeah.
So a few of her things, but I am going to brag on you on mics and stuff. I mean, not regardless of whatever, but I have my choice of mics, Derek. I've had my choice of what I want to use in here and pick what I want to get and use. And I had Gene Lawson custom make me a 251 that I use a lot on vocals. Fantastic mic. Got some Neumanns, got all these things. But when I got that Vanguard V13, I am pairing all my BGs now are basically cut on two V13s all the time. They're constantly being used. That is one of the most superior mics, bang for the buck, I have used in this studio. And even last night when we were tracking through last night, listen to the warmth, listen to her voice, it's right there, man. And it's just a great piece of gear, man. Talk about gear. That is a great piece of gear, right there. And the stereo mic, the transitions, the stereo, what you could do with 44 is just a bomb.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you have the Generation 1 or the Generation 2 of the 44? You have the Gen 2. That's right. Okay.
First one. Have the very first
That
one.
is right. That is right. You got it from Baxter down at Sound Productions, didn't you?
Number one. I have the first mic off that line when you got Generation. Yes, and it has been used and used well on everything in here. Rooms, overheads, vocals. I've ran it through its paces on all kinds of things, and I would say it's an amazing utility mic as well as what do you want to use it for? Stick it on something, And you don't have to use both sides of the diaphragm stereo. I mean, I just use one. Sometimes I plug it in. I'll just use the bottom capsule. Capture off axis. Yeah.
The C24 from AKG was famous for being a vocal mic in a couple instances. Even though it's a stereo mic,
Of course.
When you do stereo, are you XY, mid-side, Blumline? Which one are you going for first?
Mostly XY.
Okay. At 90 degrees?
Almost. I actually roll it back just a click more than that because you can.
Because you can, yeah. Getting a little wider than 90 can really yield some. Because
It's
XY,
cool.
my one gripe with XY is because it's phase coherent, which is really useful as an audio engineer.
Oh
But
yeah.
because of that, our ears aren't phase coherent. That's why I can hear if my dog barks over there, right? Because it
Right.
arrives over here a little later. But because of that, you don't get that as big of a spread, right? But then when you take it out just a little bit more, and the angle of coincidence
Just a
is not
hair.
quite the
Yeah, it makes a
same. Yeah,
difference.
it really does. Just 1 or 2 clicks more really does
Yeah,
make a difference. And that was like the most requested feature we had on the Gen 1 was we want to be able to go out to like 120. And
exactly. And yeah, it makes a difference. Especially, I've done it on the piano. We've done it in the room itself because I got a big room in there, and so we'll take it and turn it. And I go, no, a little bit wide. There it is. And you just hear this. It goes from here in your ears to here in your
yeah,
ears. You know, and there's no way to describe it except that just you have to hear it. You just need to hear it, and makes a difference. It makes a difference on many things. I would say this: the air that it brings an air. There's air. There's room, and air. And anybody in the engineering world knows air is that top, that clarity, that definition, and it's nice, man. It's really nice. So that's a great piece. Great piece.
I'm glad to hear it. So where does it tend to live? Above the piano or above the drums or?
Well, right now it was in there in the room with the piano, and it was. Then we used it. We didn't use it on this last drum session because I had to tighten the drums a bit for what we were doing, and but I did on the session prior to that. And actually, I put it in the middle of the drums and used it for an effect kind of sound thing, which was really cool because it gave the drum just mid section really jumped, and I said, try that, turn that. It's funky, man. It is a fun toy.
I've had some people do some really innovative stuff with it. One guy did a stereo crotch mic. You know the crotch mic technique? He did a stereo crotch mic, and it
Wow.
sounded phenomenal. It was at like 60 degrees or whatever. He didn't pull it all the way out to 90, but it sounded really cool. I'm always I create tools, right? That's ultimately
Yep.
what I do. But
Yep.
when you give a tool enough versatility, suddenly people become very creative with it in ways that you didn't ever envision, and it can end up being really neat. So, as far as non-Vanguard mics, though, do you have any favorites in your locker that have any special stories behind them?
Well, Gene, in that Lawson 250, I asked him to make that 251 like a vintage old. I think it was a 68 that I'd had and that I liked so much. 68, 69, something in that era, and that mic. And I said, "Can you make this like this and this sound?" And he said, "Yeah," and he did, and it's on many, many, many albums that we have done over the years. I mean, it's been a pinnacle microphone in the studio for so many lead vocals that have been cut in here. It's very, and that's really all I use that mic for. Is there? I mean, I put it on guitar sometimes, things like that too. But it is a great lead vocal mic. So yeah, that's one of my favorites. And I've had older vintage on that, but some of that's okay. But the maintenance on them, they fall apart a lot.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
conducive to a working environment that I want to grab the mic and I want it to work. And I don't want to grab the mic. Okay, man, this thing's shaky and rattling.
Nothing kills the creativity of a session like tech problems.
Pretty fast.
Yeah, you can be vibing, and then something goes wrong. You got to reboot the computer because Pro Tools crashed for the 18th time or whatever, and it just kills the vibe, man. It's brutal. Those old 251s sound incredible, but the fact that they're plastic inside and that plastic would become brittle.
Yes. They fall apart.
That was a hell of a thing.
Yeah. And you know that more than anybody else. You've probably seen your fair share of those guys.
I haven't actually worked on the internals of a 251 ever on a repair job, although I suspect that won't last. But I have seen the inside of some pretty nasty ones. Dave Wheeler at Heiserman Audio, they recreated that 251, the plastic, but they made it out of a much more durable plastic that will last until the sun is a piece of charcoal, because they're like, I don't want it to deteriorate the way that the old ones did. So
the heat heat and the electricity, that really was damaging too.
Yeah, the heat from the tube in particular can really mess up that older
It sure can.
251 plastic. But man, those mics just had a magic, right?
There's a sound, and that plus what it went back through the preamp and the console, and people don't realize analog, tape, analog, the whole way, and that's what created a lot of that sound. You can try to emulate it all you want, but that channel chain was magic.
There's something about the imperfection of analog, right? Because analog, they're all, like, it's just like the imperfection of music. Like when you hear drums that have been generated, and they're perfectly quantized and on beat, and then you hear a really good drummer that knows when to drag or knows when to push.
Yes.
And every hit on the hi-hat has a little bit of a different timbre. That imperfection is part of what makes music, right?
Oh, yeah. Agreed.
And so I feel like it's the same way with gear, right? Like we don't like microphones because they sound exactly like our ears. We like microphones because of the way they hear differently.
Absolutely, and the tone characteristics they bring to the music or the source of what it is. That's what makes it happen, man.
It's why we still put up with the BS of vacuum tubes, because vacuum tubes are objectively like so inferior to transistors. But they sound so good. They sound so good.
Yeah, I got tubes in a lot of stuff in here. I mean, Verimuse got tubes in it. The Elop's got tubes in it. I got tubes in my dual mono mic. I mean, we've got tubes in here and tubes in the microphones, and that channel chain with the tubes is great. And amplifiers. I mean, this amplifier sitting right over here is this guitar amplifier full of tubes, and the best I have coming out of amps in the room in there is a little Fender in there. Tubes. And man, this is just great. Need to lay a solo down the other day. Said, let's run the emulation. No way, man. Plug the microphone in there, get it from the cabinet, let it breathe, and let's run it through the API, and let's get a sound out of it.
And that imperfection is the character, right?
There's where it breathed, and it sounds like, wow, man, the solo's dead on. You didn't have to go in, and it didn't sound emulated. You had a drum. You were talking about studio. The drummer came in the other day just to track drums in here. Not that they'd already programmed drums, and done drums programming and all that for their music. And he's like, yeah, that's good. Good programming. I want to play them. I'm like, well, I'm glad to hear that. And he came in and laid the drums down. Were they dead perfect? Absolutely not. Well, he was a monster player. I'll tell you that. And I think they call it math rock nowadays.
Math rock, yes. That's a trippy genre.
Dude, that's what it was, and he was on. I was like, wow. It's awesome.
One of the most talented drummers I know started out by playing math rock. And that, if you're a drummer, man, like that is the peak of difficulty, right up there with like Latin percussion techniques, right? But he was a math rock guy. Now he plays he's part of Lovely the band.
There you go.
His name's Sam Price. But man, I played a couple of gigs with him. He was so talented and just like an absolutely killer, like you said, a monster drummer. Monster drummer.
It's wonderful to hear that your mouth goes.
Yeah.
4, 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, 4.
Yeah.
3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4.
It's bananas, man, and keeping track of that just makes my brain hurt. It is very validating for me as far as my decision to stop playing music for a living and start engineering for a living, because I go, right, I could never catch up with that. He's so far ahead. I'm in the dust.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way when I was playing guitar over the years, and you get to the point. I still play on tracks and play music and get to do that, and play on records, but which is fun. And play and do all those things is great. But no way do I have that. I can't keep up with kids that are 9, 8, and 7 years old today that can just rip. But individually they can sit and play, but hear them playing with a band, that's a little different. And then as you get older, they're doing that. But I'm not there anymore. Not like that. They're like superior above me.
Yeah.
You've gone. I said, and more power to you, man. Rock on, create some new ventures.
Takes a lot of different ingredients to make a soup, right? So
it does, man.
I'm going to let those guys be the stars of the show, and they can keep woodshedding 8 hours a day, because I don't have the willpower.
I don't have 8 hours a day to woodshed, man.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, you barely sleep enough, let alone getting practice.
That I have got to get some. Yes, I must have Rest gets the body good and keeps you going.
So I'll end with a fairly cliche question, but one that I ask everybody when we.
All right.
So, if you could give advice to somebody coming into the industry right now that wants to do some of the stuff you're doing, just general advice, what would you tell them?
Stay true to your heart and what you're doing. Make sure it's what you really want to do in your heart and soul. Follow your gut instinct because it knows it's right. Those are the main things. Follow your gut. Stay true to your heart. That's you gotta do. If music is your call and that's what you're gonna do, you're gonna do it. I don't care where you are. You're gonna do it. Money cannot be the object of what you're going for. If you're in the music industry, if that's your object, you're in the wrong business. If you gotta follow your heart and what you're doing, your passion for it. You're doing what you're doing, Derek, in music because you're following your heart, soul, and your mindset, and you got a knack for that. I produce records, I engineer, I mix, I produce things because I've got a knack for that. I got a given talent to do those things. So follow that and do it, and find a way to make it. Find a way to make your dreams a reality. It takes time, but follow your heart and your gut. And if you have the drive and the desire and the ambition, it will come to you, one way or the other. It will come to you because you're doing what you were created to do.
I love it. That's ending on that Chuck Ebert optimism. That it's like a breath of fresh air some days. I swear, man. Hearing from you and you're all fired up and you're go 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 and rah rah rah, and I'm like, man, I needed a little bit of that. Some wind in so it's been a pleasure, Chuck. Thanks again, man.
All mine, Derek. All mine.
All right. We'll see you guys in September.